On February 13, 2017, the small town of Delphi, Indiana, a quiet community of just 3,000 residents nestled in the heart of Carroll County, was forever changed by a crime that would haunt its people for years to come. That afternoon, 13-year-old Abigail Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German, best friends and 8th graders, set out for a hike on the Monon High Bridge trail, a scenic path along the Delphi historic trails, enjoying an unexpected day off from school due to an unused snow day. The girls, full of life and laughter, snapped photos and shared moments on Snapchat, unaware that they were being watched, stalked by a predator who would end their lives in a brutal act of violence. The Delphi Murders, as the case became known, would grip the nation, a chilling mystery marked by haunting evidence, a years-long search for justice, and a community's unyielding resolve to honor 2 young lives taken too soon. Abby and Libby were inseparable, their friendship a bright spot in the close-knit town of Delphi. Abby, born June 23, 2003, was a soft-spoken girl with a love for art and volleyball, her gentle smile a comfort to her family. Libby, born December 27, 2002, was outgoing and curious, a budding photographer who dreamed of becoming a forensic scientist, her cell phone always in hand to capture the world around her. That day, Libby's sister, Kelsey, dropped them off near the trail at 1:35 p.m., the girls planning to spend a few hours exploring before meeting Libby's father, Derek, for pickup. But they never arrived at the prearranged spot, and by evening, their families were frantic, organizing a search party that scoured the trails into the night. The next morning, on Valentine's Day, their worst fears were realized. Abby and Libby's bodies were found a quarter-mile from the Monon High Bridge, their throats slit, their lives stolen in a crime that shocked the nation. What made the Delphi murders particularly haunting was the evidence the girls left behind. Libby, in a moment of quick thinking, had recorded a video on her cell phone, capturing a grainy image of a man walking on the bridge behind them, a figure who would become known as Bridge Guy. The audio, chilling in its brevity, recorded the man's voice saying, "Guys, down the hill," words that marked the last moments of Abby and Libby's lives. The Indiana State Police released this evidence to the public, hoping it would lead to the killer. But for over 5 years, the case remained a mystery, the Bridge Guy a faceless specter who haunted Delphi's collective memory. The community rallied around the girls' families, orange lights glowing on porches as a symbol of solidarity, while the L and a Park Foundation was formed to build a memorial park in their honor, a place of healing amidst the grief. The investigation was exhaustive, with police chasing thousands of leads, releasing composite sketches, and pleading for tips. In 2019, a new sketch and additional video footage were shared, the suspect described as someone likely familiar with Delphi, possibly hiding in plain sight. Theories abounded. Some pointed to a local man, Keegan Klein, linked to a catfish account called Anthony_shots, that had communicated with Libby, but no direct connection was found. Others speculated about a broader conspiracy, even a ritualistic motive, though these were dismissed by investigators. The breakthrough came in 2022, when a volunteer, Kathy Schenk, rediscovered a tip from 2017. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old pharmacy technician at the local CVS, had admitted to being on the trail that day. An unspent .40 caliber bullet found between the girls' bodies was linked to Allen's gun, and after his arrest, he confessed over 60 times while in custody, though his defense questioned his mental state. In 2024, Allen was convicted of murder and sentenced to 130 years in prison on December 20th, a moment of justice that brought relief but not closure, as questions about his motive and possible accomplices remained unanswered. This story follows the Delphi murders through the eyes of 3 individuals whose lives were forever altered by the tragedy. Sarah Thompson, Libby's aunt, becomes a pillar of strength for her family, channeling her grief into advocacy for the girl's memory. Detective Mark Ellison, a seasoned investigator with the Indiana State Police, leads the case, his determination to find the killer a personal mission that tests his limits. Rachel Harper, a journalist from Indianapolis, covers the story, her pursuit of the truth uncovering the community's pain and resilience, even as it puts her at odds with those who want the past buried. Together, their journeys reflect the broader impact of the Delphi murders. A tale of fear that gripped a town, a quest for justice that spanned nearly 8 years, and a resilience that emerged from the ashes of tragedy, as Delphi and its people refused to let Abby and Libby be forgotten. On February 13, 2017, the small town of Delphi, Indiana, was basking in the unexpected warmth of a mild winter day. The kind of day that felt like a gift in the midst of a typically harsh Midwestern February. For 13-year-old Abigail Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German, it was a perfect opportunity to enjoy an unscheduled day off from school, a snow day that had gone unused due to the unseasonably warm weather. The best friends, inseparable since childhood, decided to hike the Monon High Bridge trail, a scenic path along the Delphi historic trails, unaware that their innocent outing would end in tragedy. This chapter captures the day of the Delphi murders through the eyes of Sarah Thompson, Libby's aunt, who feels the first stirrings of dread, Detective Mark Ellison, who is called to the scene, and Rachel Harper, a journalist who senses a story that will change her life, as a community's peace is shattered by an unthinkable crime. In Delphi, Sarah Thompson, 38, was at her small bakery, Thompson's Treats, in the heart of town, rolling out dough for her famous cinnamon rolls. Sarah, Libby's maternal aunt, had always been close to her niece, a bond forged through years of family gatherings and shared laughter. Libby, with her bright smile and curious nature, often stopped by the bakery after school, her camera in hand, snapping photos of the pastries or helping Sarah decorate cupcakes. That morning, Sarah had waved goodbye to Libby and Abby as they left for the Monon High Bridge trail, dropped off by Libby's sister, Kelsey, at 1:35 p.m. "Have fun, girls," Sarah called out, her voice warm as she watched them head toward the trail, their laughter echoing down the street. She had no reason to worry. The trail was a popular spot for locals, a place where kids often hiked, and Delphi was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone, a safe haven in a world that sometimes felt too big. But as the afternoon wore on, a sense of unease began to creep into Sarah's mind. Libby's father, Derek, had planned to pick the girls up around 3:30 p.m., but when he called Sarah at 4 p.m., his voice tight with worry, she felt her stomach drop. "They're not at the pickup spot," Derek said, his words clipped as he explained that the girls weren't answering their phones. Sarah tried to stay calm, suggesting they might have lost track of time, but her hands trembled as she hung up the phone. She closed the bakery early, her heart racing as she joined Derek and other family members at the trailhead, their voices calling out for Abby and Libby as the sun began to set. By 6 p.m., with no sign of the girls, the family contacted the Delphi Police Department, and a search party formed, neighbors and friends joining in, their flashlights cutting through the growing darkness, their shouts of "Abby! Libby!" echoing through the woods. Detective Mark Ellison, 45, was at the Carroll County Sheriff's Office when the call came in. Mark, a seasoned investigator with the Indiana State Police, had been stationed in the area for over a decade, his sharp mind and steady demeanor earning him respect among his peers. Delphi was a quiet town, the kind of place where his work usually involved minor thefts or the occasional drug bust. But the report of 2 missing girls on the Monon High Bridge trail sent a chill down his spine. He arrived at the trailhead just after 7 p.m., his boots crunching on the gravel as he surveyed the scene, the search party's voices a desperate chorus in the night. Mark spoke to Derek, noting the father's pale face and trembling hands, and then to Kelsey, who tearfully recounted dropping the girls off, her guilt palpable as she whispered, "I should have stayed with them." Mark reassured her, his voice calm but firm. "We'll find them, Kelsey. We're doing everything we can." As the search continued into the early hours of February 14th, Mark coordinated with local police, volunteers, and even a drone team, his mind racing with possibilities. He knew the statistics. Most missing children were found within the first 24 hours, often having wandered off or gotten lost. But something about this felt different. The Monon High Bridge, an abandoned railroad bridge spanning Deer Creek, was a remote spot, its rusted trestles and steep drop making it a place where accidents could happen. But Mark's gut told him this wasn't an accident. He requested Libby's cell phone records, hoping to ping her location, but the signal was dead, a detail that deepened his unease. By midnight, with temperatures dropping and no sign of the girls, Mark called for a temporary halt to the search, urging volunteers to rest and regroup at dawn. "We'll find them," he told the families, his voice steady, but inside he feared the worst. Rachel Harper, 32, was at her desk at the Indianapolis Star when she heard about the missing girls in Delphi. Rachel, an investigative journalist with a knack for human interest stories, had grown up in a small town herself, and the news struck a chord. She drove to Delphi that night, arriving just after 1 a.m. on February 14th, her notebook in hand, her camera slung over her shoulder. The town was awake despite the hour, the community center serving as a hub for the search, volunteers sipping coffee and sharing worried glances. Rachel spoke to a local pastor, Reverend James Carter, who had opened the center for the families. "This isn't the Delphi we know," he told her, his voice heavy with emotion. "These girls are our girls. We won't stop until they're home." Rachel jotted down his words, her mind already piecing together the story. A small town's innocence shattered, a community united in hope, a mystery that would soon grip the nation. The search resumed at first light on February 14th, Valentine's Day, a cruel irony that wasn't lost on anyone. At 12:15 p.m., a volunteer searcher, a local farmer named Tom Weber, found the girls' bodies in a wooded area a quarter-mile from the Monon High Bridge, near Deer Creek. The scene was devastating. Abby and Libby lay side by side, their throats slit, their clothes disheveled, the ground around them stained with blood. Mark was on the scene within minutes, his heart sinking as he confirmed the worst. He called for the coroner and secured the area, his training kicking in even as his emotions threatened to overwhelm him. "They were just kids," he muttered to his partner, Detective Lisa Carter, his voice breaking as he looked at the girls' small forms, their lives stolen in an act of unimaginable violence. Sarah was at the community center with the families when the news came, a sheriff's deputy delivering the words that shattered their world. "We've found them." "I'm so sorry." Sarah's knees buckled, her sister, Anna, Libby's mother, collapsing into her arms, their sobs echoing through the room. Abby's mother, Carrie, sat frozen, her hands clutching a photo of her daughter, her eyes vacant with grief. Sarah held them both, her own tears falling as she thought of Libby's laughter, Abby's gentle smile, the future they would never have. The community center, once a place of hope, became a space of mourning, volunteers and neighbors gathering to offer comfort, their orange ribbons, a symbol of solidarity, pinned to their coats, a silent promise to never forget. Mark oversaw the initial investigation, his team combing the scene for evidence. They found Libby's cell phone nearby, its battery dead but its contents intact, a discovery that would prove crucial. The phone contained a video, recorded by Libby at 2:07 p.m. on February 13th, showing a man walking on the Monon High Bridge behind the girls, a figure who would become known as Bridge Guy. The audio captured his voice, a chilling command. "Guys, down the hill." Mark watched the footage in the evidence room, his stomach churning as he realized Libby's quick thinking had given them a lead, a piece of evidence that might one day bring her killer to justice. "She was a brave girl," he told Lisa, his voice thick with emotion. "We owe it to her to find him." Rachel, still in Delphi, was among the first journalists to report the discovery of the bodies, her article for the Indianapolis Star capturing the town's grief and the mystery of the Bridge Guy. She interviewed Sarah at the community center, her heart breaking as Sarah spoke of Libby's dreams of becoming a forensic scientist, her love for photography, her bond with Abby. "They didn't deserve this," Sarah said, her voice trembling as she clutched a photo of the girls, their arms around each other, their smiles bright. Rachel promised to tell their story with care, her resolve hardening as she realized this was more than a story. It was a mission to honor two lives, to seek truth, to give a voice to a town in mourning. The Delphi murders had just begun to unfold, the Bridge Guy, a faceless specter who would haunt the investigation for years to come. Sarah, Mark, and Rachel, each in their own way, were drawn into the case, their lives forever changed by the loss of Abby and Libby. The town of Delphi, once a place of quiet simplicity, was now a place of grief, its people united in their determination to find justice, to hold on to hope. Even as the trail went silent, the echoes of the Monon Bridge a reminder of a day that would never be forgotten. In the weeks and months following the Delphi murders on February 13, 2017, the small town of Delphi, Indiana, became a focal point of national attention, its quiet streets transformed by grief, fear, and a desperate search for answers. The brutal killings of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German on the Monon High Bridge trail had left the community reeling, their loss a wound that refused to heal. The Indiana State Police, armed with the haunting evidence from Libby's cell phone, a grainy video of a man known as Bridge Guy and his chilling command, "Guys down the hill," launched a massive investigation determined to find the killer. This chapter follows the early stages of the investigation through the eyes of Sarah Thompson, who channels her grief into advocacy, Detective Mark Ellison, who leads the hunt for Bridge Guy, and Rachel Harper, whose reporting uncovers the town's pain as Delphi grapples with a mystery that deepens with each passing day. Sarah Thompson, now 39, was struggling to find her footing in the aftermath of her niece Libby's murder. The days following the discovery of Abby and Libby's bodies on February 14th had been a blur of tears, funeral preparations, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Sarah had been a rock for her sister Anna, Libby's mother, helping to organize the joint memorial service at Delphi Community High School, where hundreds gathered to honor the girls. The gymnasium was filled with orange balloons, the girls' favorite color, and photos of Abby and Libby, their smiles a painful reminder of what had been taken. Sarah spoke at the service, her voice trembling as she shared memories of Libby's laughter, her love for photography, her dream of becoming a forensic scientist. "We'll never stop fighting for you," she promised, her eyes meeting those of Abby's mother, Carrie, a shared vow to seek justice for their girls. In the weeks that followed, Sarah found herself unable to return to the normalcy of running Thompson's Treats, her bakery now a place of memories too painful to bear. She closed the shop temporarily, dedicating her time to supporting the families and raising awareness about the case. She joined forces with community members to form the L and a Park Foundation, a nonprofit aimed at building a memorial park in Abby and Libby's honor, a place where the town could heal and remember. They loved the outdoors, Sarah told a group of volunteers at a meeting in March 2017, her hands clutching a sketch of the proposed park, which included softball fields and a walking trail. "This is how we keep their spirits alive." But even as she poured her heart into the project, Sarah couldn't escape the fear that gripped her. The killer was still out there, and every stranger on the street felt like a potential threat. Detective Mark Ellison, now 46, was at the forefront of the investigation, his days consumed by the hunt for Bridge Guy. The Indiana State Police had set up a command center in Delphi, a small office buzzing with activity as Mark and his team sifted through hundreds of tips pouring in from across the country. On February 15, 2017, just 2 days after the murders, Mark made the decision to release the audio from Libby's cell phone to the public, a haunting clip of the suspect's voice saying, "Guys down the hill." A few days later, on February 22nd, they released the grainy image of Bridge Guy, a man in a blue jacket, jeans, and a cap, walking on the Monon High Bridge. "We believe this is the person responsible," Mark told reporters at a press conference, his voice steady but his eyes reflecting the weight of the case. "Someone out there knows this man. We need your help to find him." The release of the evidence sparked a frenzy of public interest, with tips flooding the hotline, over 500 in the first week alone. Mark's team worked around the clock, chasing leads that ranged from plausible to outlandish. A truck driver in Ohio claimed to have seen a man matching Bridge Guy's description at a gas station. A woman in Florida reported her ex-husband, who had visited Indiana in 2017, as a possible suspect. Each tip was investigated, but most led to dead ends, the killer's identity remaining elusive. Mark interviewed witnesses who had been on the trail that day, including a teenage girl who had seen Bridge Guy near the bridge around 2 p.m., her description adding little to what they already knew. A white man, medium build, possibly in his 40s, his face obscured by a cap and scarf. "He gave me a bad feeling," the girl told Mark, her voice trembling as she recounted the encounter. Mark nodded, his jaw tight, knowing that feeling was all too real. Rachel Harper, now 33, had stayed in Delphi after her initial report on the murders, her editor at the Indianapolis Star giving her the green light to cover the case in depth. Rachel rented a small apartment in town, immersing herself in the community, her articles capturing the raw emotion of a town in mourning. She attended the memorial service, her heart breaking as she watched Sarah speak, the pain in her voice echoing the grief of every parent in the room. Rachel also interviewed local residents, their fear palpable as they spoke of locking their doors for the first time, keeping their children indoors, avoiding the Monon High Bridge trail. "It's like a ghost is walking among us," a schoolteacher named Emily Carter told her hands trembling as she clutched a cup of coffee at the local diner. "We don't know who to trust anymore." Rachel's reporting took a deeper turn when she began investigating the broader context of the case. She learned of the Anthony_Shots catfish account, a fake social media profile linked to a man named Keegan Klein, who had been in contact with Libby before her death. Klein, a 27-year-old from Peru, Indiana, was arrested in 2020 on unrelated child exploitation charges, but police transcripts revealed he had communicated with Libby via the fake account, posing as a teenage boy. Rachel obtained a copy of the transcript through a source, her stomach churning as she read Klein's messages, his attempts to lure Libby into a meeting. "Could he be Bridge Guy?" she asked Mark during an interview in April 2017, her notebook filled with questions. Mark shook his head, his expression guarded. "We've looked into him, but there's no direct evidence linking him to the murders," he said, though Rachel sensed he wasn't telling her everything, a detail that only fueled her determination to dig deeper. As 2017 turned into 2018, the investigation showed no signs of slowing, but the lack of progress was taking a toll. Mark's team had processed over 1,000 tips by the end of 2017, but none had led to an arrest. In April 2018, the FBI joined the effort, bringing in behavioral analysts to create a profile of the killer. A local man, likely in his 30s or 40s, familiar with the trails, possibly with a history of violence. Mark also oversaw the collection of DNA evidence from the crime scene, though the samples were limited, contaminated by the outdoor environment. "We're doing everything we can," he told the families during a meeting in May 2018, his voice heavy with frustration. Anna, Libby's mother, nodded, her eyes red from crying, but her silence spoke volumes. She wanted results, not promises. Sarah, meanwhile, was finding solace in her advocacy work, the L and a Park Foundation raising funds for the Memorial Park, a project that gave her a sense of purpose. She organized a vigil on the one-year anniversary of the murders, February 13, 2018, the town gathering at the Delphi United Methodist Church, orange lights glowing in the windows. "Abby and Libby are still with us," Sarah told the crowd, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes, holding up a photo of the girls, their arms around each other, their smiles a beacon of hope. But the vigil was also a reminder of the killer's freedom, a fact that weighed heavily on Sarah as she looked out at the faces of her neighbors, wondering if Bridge Guy was among them, hiding in plain sight. Mark's personal life was suffering under the strain of the case. His wife, Laura, a nurse at a hospital in Lafayette, had grown distant, their conversations reduced to brief exchanges about their two children, 12-year-old Ethan and 9-year-old Sophie. "You're not here, Mark," Laura told him one night in June 2018, her voice soft but firm as they sat in their living room, the TV muted in the background. "Even when you're home, you're thinking about that case." Mark wanted to argue, to tell her he couldn't stop, not when Abby and Libby's killer was still out there, but he saw the exhaustion in her eyes and nodded, promising to try harder. But deep down, he knew the case had become a part of him, a mission he couldn't abandon, no matter the cost. Rachel's investigation was leading her into uncharted territory, her articles on the Anthony_shots account drawing attention from both the public and law enforcement. She received an anonymous tip in July 2018, a letter claiming that the killer was a local man who worked at a pharmacy in Delphi, a detail that sent a chill down her spine. She shared the tip with Mark, who promised to look into it, but she sensed his skepticism, his focus on other leads. Rachel decided to investigate on her own, visiting the CVS in Delphi, her heart racing as she watched the employees, wondering if one of them could be Bridge Guy. She didn't know it then, but her tip was closer to the truth than anyone realized, a clue that would resurface years later, leading to the arrest of Richard Allen. By the end of 2018, the Delphi murders remained unsolved, the Bridge Guy a faceless specter who haunted the town's dreams. Sarah, Mark, and Rachel, each in their own way, were consumed by the case, their lives shaped by the loss of Abby and Libby, their determination to find justice a fire that refused to die. The Monon High Bridge, once a place of beauty, had become a place of sorrow, its echoes a constant reminder of the girls who had walked its path, their laughter silenced but their memory alive, a beacon of hope in a town that refused to give up. By 2019, 2 years had passed since the Delphi murders shook the small town of Delphi, Indiana, claiming the lives of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German on the Monon High Bridge trail. The investigation, now a national obsession, had yet to yield an arrest, the Bridge Guy remaining a faceless specter despite the haunting evidence captured on Libby's cell phone. The years 2019 to 2021 brought new developments, a second sketch, additional video footage, and a renewed focus on the Anthony_shots account, but also deepened the frustration and grief of a community desperate for answers. This chapter follows the investigation's evolution through the eyes of Sarah Thompson, whose advocacy work becomes her lifeline, Detective Mark Ellison, whose determination is tested by new leads and dead ends, and Rachel Harper, whose reporting uncovers new angles as Delphi holds on to hope amidst the shadow of an unsolved crime. Sarah Thompson, now 40, had become a pillar of strength for her family and the Delphi community, though the weight of her niece Libby's murder still pressed heavily on her heart. The L. and A. Park Foundation, which she had helped establish in 2017, was making progress, with construction beginning on the Memorial Park in the spring of 2019. The park, set to include softball fields, a walking trail, and a garden dedicated to Abby and Libby, was a labor of love for Sarah, a way to honor the girls' memory and give the town a place to heal. On May 15, 2019, Sarah stood at the groundbreaking ceremony, a shovel in her hands, her sister Anna and Abby's mother Carrie by her side. "This is for our girls," Sarah said, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd, orange ribbons pinned to their shirts, a symbol of solidarity that had become a Delphi tradition. But even as she smiled for the cameras, Sarah felt the ache of loss, the knowledge that the killer was still out there casting a shadow over every moment of joy. The park project gave Sarah purpose, but it couldn't erase the fear that lingered in her daily life. She had reopened Thompson's Treats in late 2018, but the bakery felt different now, its once lively atmosphere replaced by a quiet unease. Customers spoke in hushed tones about the case, their eyes darting to the door as if expecting Bridge Guy to walk in. Sarah installed a security camera, a precaution she had never needed before, and kept a close eye on her own children, 12-year-old Noah and 9-year-old Grace, refusing to let them walk to school alone. "I can't lose anyone else," she confided to her best friend, Emily Carter, over coffee one morning in June 2019, her hands trembling as she stirred her cup. Emily, a schoolteacher who had known Abby and Libby, nodded, her own eyes filled with worry. "We're all living with it, Sarah, but you're doing so much for them. They'd be proud of you." Detective Mark Ellison, now 47, was feeling the strain of the Delphi murders investigation more than ever. The Indiana State Police had processed over 10,000 tips by early 2019, but the killer remained elusive, a fact that gnawed at Mark's sense of duty. On April 22, 2019, Mark and his team held a press conference to release new evidence, a move he hoped would reignite public interest and generate fresh leads. They shared a second composite sketch of the suspect, a younger-looking man with curly hair and a clean-shaven face, a stark contrast to the first sketch released in 2017, which depicted an older man with a goatee. They also released additional video footage from Libby's phone, a few more seconds of bridge guy walking on the Monon High Bridge, his gait unsteady, his presence menacing. "We believe the suspect is between 18 and 40 years old," Mark told the crowd of reporters, his voice firm but his eyes reflecting the exhaustion of 2 years without a break. "He's likely local, someone who knows the area, someone who may be hiding in plain sight." The new sketch and video sparked a flurry of new tips, but also confusion. Why did the sketches look so different? Mark explained that the first sketch was based on a witness who saw a man on the trail, while the second was a composite of multiple accounts, including new information from 2019. Privately, he worried that the conflicting images might undermine public confidence, but he had no choice. The case needed a breakthrough. His team followed up on every lead, including a tip about a local man, Daniel Nations, who had been arrested in Colorado in 2017 for threatening hikers with a hatchet. Nations matched the first sketch, but his DNA didn't match the limited samples from the crime scene, and he had an alibi for February 13, 2017. Another lead pointed to a man named Paul Etter, a suspect in a 2019 abduction case in Indiana, but Etter killed himself during a police standoff, and his DNA also didn't match. "We're chasing shadows," Mark told his partner, Lisa Carter, one night in July 2019, his voice heavy with frustration as they sat in the command center, case files spread across the table. Rachel Harper, now 34, had become a fixture in Delphi, her reporting for the Indianapolis Star earning her a reputation as a compassionate yet tenacious journalist. Her articles had kept the Delphi murders in the national spotlight, her words giving voice to the community's grief and hope. In 2019, Rachel began digging deeper into the Anthony_Shots account, the fake social media profile linked to Keegan Kline, who had been in contact with Libby before her death. Kline's arrest in 2020 on child exploitation charges had raised eyebrows, and Rachel obtained a leaked police transcript of his interrogation, her heart racing as she read his admissions. He had used the fake account to solicit explicit photos from underage girls, including Libby. "I never met her in person," Kline told investigators, his voice recorded in the transcript, but Rachel wasn't convinced. She interviewed a cybersecurity expert, Dr. Michael Bennett, who explained that catfish accounts often worked in networks, raising the possibility that Kline might have shared Libby's information with someone else, someone who could be Bridge Guy. Rachel's investigation led her to a dark corner of the internet, where she found forums speculating about the Delphi murders, some users claiming to have known Kline, others suggesting a broader conspiracy involving a local pedophile ring. She shared her findings with Mark, meeting him at a diner in Delphi in August 2020, her notebook filled with questions. "What if Kline wasn't working alone?" she asked, her voice urgent as she slid a printout of the forum posts across the table. Mark's expression was guarded, but he admitted that Kline was a person of interest, though there was no direct evidence linking him to the murders. "We're looking into every angle, Rachel," he said, his tone weary but sincere. "But we need more than theories." Rachel nodded, her resolve hardening. She knew the truth was out there, and she wouldn't stop until she found it, even if it meant putting herself at risk. By 2021, the Delphi Murders investigation had become a marathon, with no finish line in sight. Mark's team had processed over 20,000 tips, conducted hundreds of interviews, and followed leads across the country, but the killer remained at large. The emotional toll was evident. Mark's marriage was on the rocks, his wife, Laura, growing increasingly distant, their conversations strained by his long hours and emotional absence. "I can't keep doing this, Mark," Laura told him one night in March 2021, her voice breaking as they stood in their kitchen, their children asleep upstairs. "You're not the man I married." Mark wanted to fight for his family, but the case consumed him, the faces of Abby and Libby driving him forward, a promise he couldn't break. Sarah, meanwhile, was finding solace in the progress of the L and a Park, which opened its first phase in June 2021, a softball field where local teams played under orange banners bearing Abby and Libby's initials. She organized a community event to mark the opening, her heart swelling with pride as she watched children play, their laughter a bittersweet echo of the girls she had lost. But the event was also a reminder of the justice that had yet to be served, a fact that weighed heavily on Sarah as she spoke to the crowd, her voice steady but her eyes filled with tears. "We'll keep fighting for you, girls," she said, holding up a photo of Abby and Libby, their smiles a beacon of hope in a town that refused to forget. Rachel's reporting continued to shine a light on the case, her articles on the Anthony_shots account prompting new tips, though none led to an arrest. She received anonymous messages, some encouraging her work, others warning her to back off, a reminder of the danger she faced in pursuing the truth. In December 2021, she published a piece reflecting on the 4-year anniversary of the murders, her words a call to action. "Abby and Libby deserve justice, and Delphi deserves peace. Someone knows who Bridge Guy is. It's time to come forward." The article went viral, shared across social media, a testament to the power of her voice, but also a reminder of the mystery that remained unsolved, a shadow that stretched across the years, testing the resilience of a town that refused to give up. In 2022, 5 years after the Delphi murders claimed the lives of Abby Williams and Libby German, a breakthrough finally emerged, offering a glimmer of hope to a community that had waited in anguish for justice. The arrest of Richard Allen, a 50-year-old pharmacy technician from Delphi, came after a volunteer rediscovered a tip he had given in 2017, a lead that had been overlooked amidst the thousands of others. Allen, a local man who had lived just a mile from the Monon High Bridge, was identified as the Bridge Guy, his arrest marking a turning point in one of Indiana's most haunting cold cases. This chapter captures the moment of the arrest and its immediate aftermath through the eyes of Sarah Thompson, who feels a mix of relief and renewed grief, Detective Mark Ellison, whose years of work culminate in a bittersweet victory, and Rachel Harper, whose reporting had unknowingly pointed to Allen years earlier, as Delphi begins to confront the face of its nightmare. Sarah Thompson, now 43, was at the L and a Park on October 26, 2022, overseeing a community event to celebrate the park's 5th anniversary, when her phone buzzed with a call from her sister, Anna. The park, a memorial to Abby and Libby, had become a sanctuary for Sarah, its softball fields and walking trails a testament to the girls' love for the outdoors. She had been speaking to a group of children, their laughter filling the air, when Anna's voice broke through, trembling with emotion. "They've arrested someone, Sarah," Anna said, her words barely audible over the sound of her tears. "They think he's the one who killed our girls." Sarah's heart stopped, her knees weakening as she stepped away from the crowd, her mind racing with a flood of emotions, relief, anger, disbelief. "Who is it?" she asked, her voice shaking as she gripped the phone, the children's laughter fading into the background. Anna explained what she had learned from the police. Richard Allen, a 50-year-old man who worked at the local CVS, had been arrested that morning, charged with 2 counts of murder. The breakthrough came after a volunteer, Kathy Shank, rediscovered a tip Allen had given in 2017, just days after the murders, admitting he had been on the Monon High Bridge trail on February 13th, wearing a blue jacket and jeans, matching the description of Bridge Guy. The tip had been buried in the thousands of leads, but Shank's diligence brought it to light, and a search of Allen's home uncovered a .40 caliber unspent bullet that matched one found between Abby and Libby's bodies, linking him to the crime scene. Sarah listened, her tears falling as she realized the killer had been living among them, a man she might have passed on the street, a man who had served her at the pharmacy, hiding in plain sight for 5 years. Detective Mark Ellison, now 50, was at the Carroll County Sheriff's Office when the call came from his team, confirming Allen's arrest. Mark had been leading the Delphi Murders investigation since 2017, his life consumed by the case, his marriage to Laura strained to the breaking point by his long hours and emotional distance. The rediscovery of Allen's tip in early October 2022 had set off a flurry of activity. Mark's team re-interviewed Allen, who lived just a mile from the bridge, and searched his home on October 13th, finding the incriminating bullet and other evidence, including clothing that matched Bridge Guy's description. Allen's wife, Kathy, confirmed he had been on the trail that day, a detail that sealed his fate. Mark watched as Allen was taken into custody, his face expressionless, a stark contrast to the menacing figure in Libby's video. "We got him," Mark told his partner, Lisa Carter, his voice steady but his hands trembling as he held a photo of Abby and Libby, their smiles a reminder of why he had never given up. Mark met with the families that afternoon, his heart heavy as he explained the arrest. Anna and Carrie sat across from him, their eyes red from crying, their hands clasped together. "His name is Richard Allen," Mark said, his voice gentle but firm. "We have strong evidence linking him to the crime scene, and he's confessed multiple times since his arrest." Anna nodded, her tears falling as she whispered, "Thank you, Mark. Thank you for not giving up." Carrie, her voice barely audible, asked, "Why did he do it?" Mark shook his head, his jaw tight. "We don't know yet," he admitted, the question one that had haunted him for years. Allen's confessions, given during phone calls from jail, were erratic, his mental state questioned by his defense, but the evidence was solid. A bullet, a timeline, a man who had been on the bridge, a man who had lived among them, unnoticed for 5 years. Rachel Harper, now 37, was in her Indianapolis apartment when she heard the news of Allen's arrest, her editor at the Indianapolis Star calling her with the update. Rachel had been covering the Delphi murders since 2017, her articles keeping the case in the public eye, her investigation into the Anthony_Shots account and local suspects earning her both praise and threats. She felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered the anonymous tip she had received in 2018, a letter claiming the killer worked at a pharmacy in Delphi, a lead she had shared with Mark but which had gone nowhere at the time. "It was him," she whispered to herself, her heart racing as she pulled out her old notes, the tip now a haunting reminder of how close she had been to the truth. She drove to Delphi that evening, her camera and notebook in hand, determined to tell the story of the arrest with the same care she had given to every article about Abby and Libby. In Delphi, Rachel interviewed Sarah at the L and a park, the two women standing near a garden dedicated to the girls, orange flowers blooming in the autumn light. "I can't believe he was here all along," Sarah said, her voice trembling as she clutched a photo of Libby, her niece's smile a painful reminder of what had been lost. "I might have seen him at the CVS, Rachel. I might have spoken to him." Rachel nodded, her own eyes filling with tears as she wrote down Sarah's words, her heart breaking for the family that had waited so long for this moment. She also spoke to local residents, their reactions a mix of relief and anger. Relief that the killer had been caught, anger that he had lived among them. A quiet man who had blended into the fabric of their town, his dark secret hidden behind a facade of normalcy. The arrest of Richard Allen sent shockwaves through Delphi, the town grappling with the revelation that the killer had been one of their own. Allen, a married father of a grown daughter, had worked at the CVS for years, processing photos for customers, including the families of Abby and Libby. He had attended community events, walked the same streets, lived a life that seemed unremarkable, all while carrying the weight of his crime. The news brought a flood of emotions. Parents held their children closer, neighbors whispered about the times they had interacted with Allen, and the Monon High Bridge, already a place of sorrow, became a symbol of betrayal, its echoes now tied to a man who had walked its path with murder in his heart. Sarah found herself unable to sleep in the days following the arrest, her mind replaying every interaction she might have had with Allen, her grief resurfacing with a new intensity. She attended a vigil at the Delphi United Methodist Church on October 28, 2022, the community gathering to mark the arrest, orange lights glowing in the windows. "This isn't the end," Sarah told the crowd, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "We still need justice for Abby and Libby, but this is a step forward." The vigil was a moment of unity, a reminder of the town's resilience, but also a reminder of the long road ahead. The legal process, the trial, the questions that remained unanswered. Mark, too, felt the weight of the moment, his years of work culminating in an arrest that was both a victory and a burden. He met with his team to prepare for the legal proceedings, knowing that Alan's confessions, while numerous, were complicated by his defense's claims of mental instability. The bullet, the timeline, the witness statements, all pointed to Alan's guilt, but Mark knew the trial would be a battle, the family's hope for justice resting on the strength of the evidence. At home, he tried to reconnect with Laura, who had moved back in after a separation in 2021, their marriage fragile but healing. "I'm proud of you, Mark," she told him one night, her hand resting on his, a small gesture that meant more than words. Mark nodded, his eyes filling with tears, the faces of Abby and Libby a constant reminder of why he had never given up. Rachel's reporting on the arrest went viral, her article detailing Alan's life, the evidence against him, and the community's reaction, a testament to her dedication to the case. She received a call from a source in the prosecutor's office, who hinted that Alan might not have acted alone, a detail that sent a chill down her spine. "We're looking into possible accomplices," the source told her, their voice low, a reminder that the case was far from over. Rachel knew the trial would be a turning point, a chance for Delphi to confront its nightmare, but also a test of the justice system, a test of the town's resilience, a test of the hope that had carried them through 5 years of darkness. In 2024, 7 years after the Delphi murders shattered the small town of Delphi, Indiana, the trial of Richard Allen brought a long-awaited reckoning for the murders of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German. Allen, a 52-year-old pharmacy technician identified as the Bridge Guy, had been arrested in 2022 after a rediscovered tip and incriminating evidence linked him to the crime. The trial, held in Carroll County, was a grueling process, marked by emotional testimony, legal battles, and the haunting evidence from Libby's cell phone, culminating in Alan's conviction and sentencing in December 2024. This chapter captures the trial and its aftermath through the eyes of Sarah Thompson, who seeks closure for her family, Detective Mark Ellison, whose work is put to the test in the courtroom, and Rachel Harper, whose reporting documents a community's journey toward healing, as Delphi finally sees justice for its lost girls. Sarah Thompson, now 45, sat in the front row of the Carroll County Courthouse on October 14, 2024, the first day of Richard Allen's trial, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The courtroom was packed with family members, reporters, and community members, the air thick with tension as Allen was led in, his face pale and expressionless, a stark contrast to the menacing figure in Libby's video. Sarah had spent the past 2 years preparing for this moment, attending every pretrial hearing, her sister Anna and Abby's mother, Carrie, by her side. The L and a Park, a memorial to the girls, had become a place of solace for Sarah, but the trial was a different kind of battle, a chance to see the man who had taken Libby and Abby face the consequences of his actions. "I need to look him in the eye," Sarah had told Anna the night before, her voice steady but her hands trembling as she clutched a photo of Libby, her niece's smile a reminder of why she was here. The trial was a grueling ordeal, stretching over 6 weeks, each day a test of the family's endurance. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence. The .40 caliber unspent bullet found between the girls' bodies, traced to Allen's gun. His 2017 tip admitting he was on the trail that day, wearing clothes matching Bridge Guy's description, and over 60 confessions Allen had made in jail, recorded during phone calls to his wife and mother, though his defense argued these were the result of mental instability. The most haunting moment came when Libby's cell phone video was played in court. The grainy image of bridge guy walking on the Monon High Bridge filling the screen, his voice. "Guys, down the hill," echoing through the silent courtroom. Sarah felt her stomach churn, her tears falling as she remembered Libby's bravery, her quick thinking that had given them this evidence, a piece of the puzzle that had finally led to Alan. Detective Mark Ellison, now 52, was a key witness for the prosecution, his testimony a culmination of 7 years of relentless work on the Delphi Murders case. Mark took the stand on October 20th, 2024, his voice steady as he detailed the investigation, from the initial discovery of the bodies to the 2022 breakthrough that led to Alan's arrest. He explained how Kathy Shank, a volunteer, had rediscovered Alan's 2017 tip, a lead that had been overlooked amidst the thousands of others, and how the search of Alan's home had uncovered the incriminating bullet. "We knew we had our man," Mark told the jury, his eyes meeting those of the families, a silent promise that he had done everything in his power to bring them justice. The defense cross-examined him aggressively, questioning the integrity of the evidence and suggesting contamination at the crime scene. But Mark held his ground, his years of experience and dedication to the case shining through. The trial was not without its challenges. Alan's defense team argued that he was mentally unwell, pointing to his erratic behavior in jail. Confessions followed by retractions, claims of hearing voices, and a history of depression. They also suggested that the Anthony_Shots account, linked to Keegan Kline, pointed to other suspects, a theory that had been explored but dismissed by investigators. The prosecution countered with testimony from a forensic psychologist, Dr. Emily Larson, who stated that Alan's confessions were consistent with guilt, not delusion, and that his behavior on the day of the murders, seen by witnesses on the trail, his car parked nearby, aligned with the timeline of the crime. The jury deliberated for 3 days, a tense period during which Sarah, Anna, and Carrie waited at the L and a park, their hands clasped in prayer, orange ribbons tied to the trees, a symbol of the hope they had held onto for so long. On November 8, 2024, the verdict came. Richard Allen was found guilty on all counts: 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of felony murder, and 2 counts of kidnapping. Sarah let out a sob as the foreman read the verdict, her arms around Anna and Carrie, their tears a mix of relief and renewed grief. The courtroom erupted in quiet applause, the family's long wait for justice finally over. Mark, sitting in the back, felt a weight lift from his shoulders, his years of work validated. Though the victory was bittersweet, nothing could bring Abby and Libby back. He met with the families after the verdict, his voice thick with emotion as he said, "This is for your girls. They fought for this, and so did you." Anna hugged him, her tears soaking his shirt, a moment of gratitude that Mark would carry with him for the rest of his life. Rachel Harper, now 39, had been in the courtroom every day of the trial, her articles for the Indianapolis Star providing a detailed account of the proceedings, her words capturing the raw emotion of the families and the community. She wrote about the moment the verdict was read, her article titled "Justice for Abby and Libby, A Town's Long Wait Ends," going viral as readers across the country shared in Delphi's relief. Rachel also interviewed Sarah after the verdict, the 2 women meeting at the L and a park, the garden now a place of reflection as the trial came to a close. "It doesn't bring them back," Sarah told her voice soft as she touched a plaque bearing Abby and Libby's names, orange flowers blooming around it. "But it means they can rest now. We can start to heal." Rachel nodded, her own eyes filling with tears, her reporting a testament to the power of journalism to honor the lost and give voice to a community's pain. The sentencing hearing on December 20th, 2024, was a final step in the legal process, a moment for the families to speak directly to Alan. Sarah took the stand, her voice steady as she addressed the man who had taken her niece's life. "You stole 2 beautiful girls from us," she said, her eyes locked on Alan, who stared at the floor, his face impassive. "But you didn't break us. Abby and Libby's light shines brighter than your darkness ever will." The judge sentenced Alan to 130 years in prison, a life sentence with no chance of parole, a decision that brought a collective sigh of relief to the courtroom. The families left the courthouse together, their arms linked, orange ribbons pinned to their coats, a symbol of the unity that had carried them through 7 years of grief. Mark, watching from the back of the courtroom, felt a sense of closure, though the case had left its mark on him. His marriage to Laura had survived, their bond strengthened by the trial, a reminder of the love that had held them together through the darkest times. He visited the Monon High Bridge after the sentencing, the first time he had been there since the early days of the investigation, its rusted trestles now a place of quiet reflection. "We did it, girls," he whispered, his voice carried away by the wind, a promise kept to 2 girls he had never met but had come to know through their family's love. Rachel's final article on the case, published on December 21, 2024, reflected on the trial's impact, her words a tribute to Delphi's resilience. She wrote of the L and a park, the orange lights that still glowed on porches, the community that had refused to let Abby and Libby be forgotten. She also hinted at the questions that remained: Alan's motive, the possibility of accomplices, the shadow of the Anthony_Shots account. But her focus was on the healing that had begun, a healing made possible by justice, by love, by the unyielding spirit of a town that had faced its nightmare and emerged stronger. 8 years after the Delphi murders claimed the lives of 13-year-old Abby Williams and 14-year-old Libby German on February 13, 2017, the small town of Delphi, Indiana, stands as a testament to the enduring power of community, love, and resilience. The brutal killings on the Monon High Bridge Trail, a crime that shocked the nation, left a scar on the town of 3,000, a wound deepened by the 5-year wait for an arrest, the trial of Richard Allen in 2024, and the lingering questions about his motive and possible accomplices. Yet, amidst the grief and the uncertainty, the story of the Delphi murders is also one of hope, a narrative of a town that refused to be defined by its darkest days, a legacy of 2 young girls whose light continues to shine through the lives they touched and the justice they inspired. The Delphi murders exposed the fragility of small-town safety, a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unexpected places. Richard Allen, a local man who worked at the CVS, lived just a mile from the Monon High Bridge, and blended into the fabric of Delphi, was the bridge guy captured in Libby's haunting video, his voice, "Guys down the hill," a chilling echo of the last moments of Abby and Libby's lives. His arrest in 2022, conviction in 2024, and sentencing to 130 years in prison brought a measure of justice, but it also raised questions that may never be answered. The Anthony_Shots account linked to Keegan Kline hinted at a broader network, a shadow that lingers over the case, a reminder of the complexity of truth in the digital age. The lack of a clear motive, Alan's silence on why he targeted the girls, left the families with a void, a piece of the puzzle that may remain forever out of reach. For those who lived through the tragedy, the impact was profound, their lives forever altered by the loss of Abby and Libby. Sarah Thompson, Libby's aunt, became a beacon of strength, channeling her grief into advocacy through the L and a Park Foundation, creating a memorial park that stands as a place of healing, its orange flowers and softball fields a tribute to the girls' love for the outdoors. Sarah's journey was one of resilience, her bakery a place of warmth, her family a source of joy, her work a promise to keep Abby and Libby's memory alive. She found peace in the small moments, baking with her children, watching them play at the park, knowing that her niece's light would never fade, a light that outshone the darkness of her loss. Detective Mark Ellison, who led the investigation, dedicated nearly 8 years to the case, a mission that cost him dearly but also defined his career. The conviction of Richard Allen was a victory, a promise kept to the families, but it came at the expense of his marriage and his emotional well-being. In retirement, Mark found solace in his children, his days filled with fishing trips and quiet moments, a chance to reclaim the life he had put on hold. His visits to the Monon High Bridge, once a place of sorrow, became a place of reflection, a reminder of the girls he had fought for, a testament to the power of justice, even when it comes at a personal cost. Rachel Harper, the journalist who covered the case, gave voice to Delphi's pain and hope, her articles and book, Echoes of the Monon Bridge, a tribute to Abby and Libby, a call to action for other cold cases. Her work earned her a Pulitzer nomination, but more importantly, it honored the families, ensuring that the girls' story would not be forgotten. Rachel's journey was one of truth, her reporting a bridge between the past and the future. Her words a reminder of the impact one person can have, a legacy that inspired a new generation to seek justice, to tell stories that matter, to never give up. The legacy of the Delphi murders is a complex one, a tapestry of loss and healing woven into the fabric of the town's history. The case led to changes in how cold cases are handled in Indiana, with increased funding for volunteer programs like the one that rediscovered Allen's tip, ensuring that other families might not wait as long for justice. The L and a park, the orange lights that still glow on porches, the annual vigils on February 13th. All are symbols of a community that chose to honor its lost girls, to find strength in unity, to heal through love. The Monon High Bridge, once a place of terror, has been reclaimed as a place of remembrance, its rusted trestles now a backdrop for quiet reflection, its echoes a song of resilience, a melody that carries the voices of Abby and Libby, a light that will never fade. The Delphi murders taught a town the cost of grief, the weight of uncertainty, the power of hope. They showed the world the bravery of two young girls, whose quick thinking gave investigators the evidence to find their killer, a legacy of courage that lives on in every orange ribbon, every candle lit in their name. Sarah, Mark, and Rachel, each in their own way, carried the weight of the case, but they also found light in the darkness, through family, through purpose, through the unyielding belief that even in the face of tragedy, the human spirit can endure, can heal, and can shine brighter than the shadows that seek to dim it.